What's going on, everybody? Hope you're enjoying your beautiful Wednesday night. It is a little bit later than we usually go, but we have to be talking about opening day baseball here on the Sports Wagering Network. I am Gunspix, and this is the DadBodds podcast. And as always, as annual as Christmas, New Year's, and bowl season, whatever you want to say, before baseball season starts, we always have to have this man on here. He is at 40-year-old Vision on Twitter. They call him C2. He is the baseball totals guru. 9-year record, 3,571, 3,086, and 53.64% plus 248 units in a 9-year span, folks. This guy has historical data. He knows what he's doing, and he's got a great package for you that he has for all season long, and he gives you the plus unit guarantee as well. I'll let him talk about this one, but I want to make sure I introduce him here at 40-year-old Vision. What's going on, my man? How you feeling tonight?
Guns, I am just excited for tomorrow. Excited to be here. What is this? 4 years in a row? 5? It's been great.
I think
every year, and the luck of the Irish, if you will, always seems to come with any time I come on Dad. So I'm planning on tomorrow being a good day.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the season just snuck up on us. It's like we had March Madness, we had football season, and everything kind of just piled up. And all of a sudden, it's like, Pun goes, "Do you know that opening day is next week, next Thursday?" And I'm like, "Oh crap! I got to do my homework. I got to get the sheets ready." But yeah, I'm ready for this one. I want to take this off in case people don't know. C2's been doing baseball totals for. He's got a 9-year recorded record. He has a service that he charges $600, get you in initially. If you're a preferred, I guess a customer that comes back, previous subscribers, he does cut deals there, so you can DM him that. But he also has a guarantee, which nobody else does in the business here. So he's like, if you get 5 units profit, that's all. It's like that. If you don't get 5 units profit, there's a $500 discount to the service. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's actually a refund.
Yeah,
so
and absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So he backs everything up, and he gives you 3 to 5 plays a day. It's absolutely electric, and I'm ready for this one. But I guess what made you get into like total? Like the one thing that you pick on this one is totals. It's like why totals over anything else instead of like sides or money lines or even nerfies for that matter?
I'm a baseball fan at heart. I have my teams that I love. I'm a Yankees fan. I know you love that. So we're brothers in arms. But so totals takes the emotion out of it. I may be completely off on who I think's going to win, but it can be over, it can be under. The totals, then I can still cheer for who I want to win as long as I'm cheering within, an under 7 or an over 8. It's all about the emotion. I found out early on that when I bet on the teams, I was betting on who I liked, who I wanted to win. I don't care who scores the most or scores the least. That's all just data. And so it takes the heart out of it, takes the emotion out of it, and it has really allowed me to focus.
Yeah. I mean, if you got, I have the same thing as like the first year I did for all I do is 5 innings, and I'll do totals and I'll do sides, and this was the first year that I did it, and I found it that like I can actually narrow everything down a little bit better once I had the data. But it's going to be a trick to kind of continue that data going like 2-3 years down the road. And you got a lot of pitchers changing teams, so that's going to be very interesting to see from my end. I wanted to ask you this too: is like when you're looking at the early season versus looking at like middle season when it gets to the summer, when it gets into September and into the I guess postseason contention type of. Is there anything that you do from your system standpoint that you look at from an earlier standpoint than you do on the later end of the season?
I actually find that weather is a greater impact in the first month and a half than it is the rest of the year. Now, that's really trending towards unders. The cold weather, the cold wind coming off, especially, between Cleveland, Detroit, Cincinnati, Chicago. You're going to get well, just a colder atmosphere. They're coming up from Arizona. They're coming up from Florida. They haven't acclimated yet. They're not used to playing. Boston itself, between and I've had this data for a while, between about 45 and 50 degrees are really consistent unders. And it, for some reason, it doesn't matter what the wind is doing. Whereas Chicago, it can be 42, the wind blowing in heavy, but they're hitting line drives. They're connecting. So it kind of depends on who the team is, obviously who the pitchers are. I do like a rookie pitchers in the first few starts because there isn't as much tape on them for the batters to look at. And then I'm a big fan early in the season of the East Coast first games going out to the West Coast night games and looking at unders or even team total unders for those East Coast teams. Some are just situational, but that once you get more towards middle and end of the year, then you know what the home plate umpires are calling. You have a little bit more data on any of the new pitchers. I like using spring training plus last year ERA as just a start, but you can really hone in after they've got about 3 to 5 starts on the season and get a better understanding. The one challenge, and I would say it happened both the last 2 years, is the ball. You start off with one, you get a little bit of consistency, you have maybe 3 to 4 starts using that ball, and then around May 15th, May 18th of last year, they switched the ball on us. I was up 25 units on May 18th. I dropped 30 the next 3 weeks, and the articles that have come out were saying that is exactly when the ball was changing. You wouldn't think that a ball would make that much difference, but it was a huge difference. You have humidor balls in the colder weather, then and it just made a difference. And whether it's not even in ounces; it's in grams on the ball. Balls, the weight of the ball, but it had a high impact last year, and really unfortunate. And I'm hearing this year that it will be more consistent and one ball, which will be helpful to everything I do.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's good. And exactly is going to get really segue us into we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about rule changes. Listen, we're going to bring a lot of plays to the table here. I've got a few first 5 plays for tomorrow, and I know C2 just brought the absolute heat when it comes to the plays. He sent us the list, and I was like, my God, how am I going to bring all this stuff up? But we're going to try to pile through this stuff really quickly. But the first thing we want to talk about is make sure everybody understands what's going to be happening with the league and how it's going to affect challenges for handicapping with the rule changes. Pun wants to bring up the graphic that kind of like summarizes a lot of the rule changes on this one. So basically what you're dealing with here is you got, of course, the pitch clock. So the way I understand it is you have 2 disengagements, right? Once you have that third one, it's a balk. It's you got 15 seconds per base empty, 20 seconds from with runners on, and also hitters only get 1 timeout per plate appearance. That's going to be a little bit tricky. So you're not going to have a lot of step ups. You're not going to have it's going to kind of really affect the rhythm of the pitcher, also rhythm of the batter for that matter. I don't know how this is going to affect my capping perspective. Have you given it any thoughts here, C2?
I have. What I'm looking at this year, and there are multiple rule changes that impacted me the last 2 years since COVID. I would say one of the largest impacts is the extra innings rule with a runner on.
Yeah.
That's now going to continue. At the end of last year, they had talked about that wouldn't continue. Now I think it's part of the game. So rather than full game unders, all my unders are going to be first five. All my overs are going to be full game. So that's one pretty major tweak in what I'm looking at, and that would have been my full game unders compared to the first five unders. First five unders won about 20 more than the full game unders. They lost them late, whether that's a bullpen meltdown or extra innings. So that right there is about a 40 unit swing.
Mhm.
Had I just played and last year was a year that I had to refund clients. It was a second losing season out of 9 years, but I think I can adjust because of that, and learned that the second half of the game, the rule changes made a larger impact. I actually think that the second half of the game, with more relievers coming in, will make more of an impact on calling those timers. I think your starting pitchers are going to be more consistent and have more time to realize, not not more time, 15, 20 second, but more time on the mound just in general, to get adjusted fairly quickly if they're not already through the spring training.
Right.
It's going to be your situational pitchers that are coming in with bases loaded, with first and third, with two outs. Those are the times where they're trying to communicate to their catcher a little bit more, maybe communicate with the manager on what pitches they need to be making, and that's going to take more time. So I think the second half again is going to help with the overs. It's going to hurt the unders, and is another reason why I'm looking at first five unders.
Do you think with this change, because usually you see, I mean, we'll throw Colorado as an outlier because those totals are always
Sure.
like
Yep.
11, 12 or whatever. But usually to hypothetical, it's anywhere between 8 and 9. Do you think that's going to make an adjustment with as the season goes along? Say in the first month or two, you're going to start seeing higher totals like you would with hockey. I mean, there was a time where hockey never reached 6 goals
Yeah.
on over numbers, right? Is like now you're going to see totals kind of average in the 9 and 10 range. That's going to kind of I always think that the books are going to adjust to the rules
Yep.
um, eventually, and then it's kind of swing things back to like what we're used to on the norm. It's just we're just looking at different numbers. But like I said, like I've just completely left full games out there and let everybody else have at it. I can't
Sure.
do it anymore. It's first five. I deal with one pitcher. Ideally, I deal with two pitchers up against each other, and hopefully I'm worried about the pitching rhythm, and that would affect the totals in there as well. Um,
Yeah, one of the things I've considered, and it just makes it so much more complicated because not everybody can get to it, is you have first five totals, but you also have the I guess call them second half totals.
right.
And last year, Cincinnati was a great first five under, and then they imploded. So you could go live, last half of the season with Cincinnati, quite a few games. I made some good money if it was 0-0-0-1 in the fourth, and I'd take the over 5.5, over 6.5, and by the sixth inning it had already hit. So there is an advantage to knowing when that implosion is coming, and
Mhm.
if these rules do impact what I think, at least the pitching rule will impact the relief pitchers, middle and end relief pitchers more, then there's a value to either playing live overs or to playing that second half early number.
That's a great point there. Yeah, I mean, maybe there's a little bit more of a strategic edge if you can actually pinpoint certain teams
Yeah.
to take live second half, especially if they're like I said, like you just said, is like just not a great starting team, but they end up swinging things around in the bat on the second half of the game. Uh, it's going to be interesting. I hope it doesn't. I'm kind of going by at least early, small units, going by 2022 stats in a lot of cases, but I have to take that with a grain of salt because
Sure.
a lot of the pitchers that I loved in first five are on different teams, and we'll
Right.
talk about them in the second. But before we actually get into talking about C2's got a bunch of futures that he wants to talk about. Of course, there's going to be a lot of win totals as well. But I want to make sure we give the proper kudos to our sponsor, Viva Tequila Seltzers.
365 days of hard work. And it all comes down. Guys, we've waited a year for this, and you're already drinking?
Ryan, this is a charity scramble. We're here for the Vivas.
Viva Tequila Seltzer. Only 88 calories. 0 carbs, 0 sugar, and gluten-free. Ditch the malt. Add tequila.
Good job, boys. One for you, one for you.
As I
Viva's the way to go.
right now, it is. Have you had one yet, C2?
I have. They're delicious.
They're incredible. I was down in Turning Stone and met one of the part owners, and he gave me a humongous case before I went back to Maryland. It was an absolute blast. I lost my voice. I might have got strep throat out there. I don't know because it was but it was an absolute trip. Man, did we make some money out there. But if anybody's looking for college basketball picks, this isn't the show for it. Well, I'll do that on Saturday. Got a special guest for that one. And of course, the Dab will be joining me for that show. But we're here to talk about baseball here, folks. And let's talk futures here for a second. All right.
Sure.
We talked earlier for the show. And I didn't disagree with a lot of the stuff that you said about, probably seeing a lot of the same stuff that we're going to be seeing next year in terms of the teams that are going to be in the postseason and making that big run. But let's start this with divisions because you had a few picks on this one about teams winning the division. It looks like you've got some good value on a couple of good teams. Do you want to talk about a couple of those?
Sure. I love the Braves this year. Last year I loved them too. They ended up doing great, but their pitching, they had some arm trouble. They had some injuries. As long as they can stay consistent, and because they don't have to play the Mets as much, I going into the rule changes, and I would say as much the schedule changes are going to impact season win totals and some of the future divisions more than anything. If you get a chance to play Detroit, Kansas City, the Nationals, Miami, and Colorado more, which anybody out of division did not last year, you're going to pick up 3, 4, 5 more wins. Dodgers and Padres, Yankees, Tampa Bay, Toronto, let's see. Just trying to think of, the highest win totals last year were the Dodgers and Houston. The lowest were Miami, Detroit. So if you're taking 3 to 6 games away from the highest,
the lowest, they had 55.
Okay.
You're Oakland at 60, Cincinnati at 62, Pirates 62. Those were the lowest.
Okay. So, you look at those in division, they don't have the easy wins like they did last year, but everybody else now gets to play them 6 times.
Yep.
You should be picking up 4 out of those 6. So there are advantages to those teams. But if you're the Dodgers and Padres or, Cubs and Brewers and Cardinals, you're not playing Pittsburgh as much. You're not playing the Rockies as much. You now are playing tougher teams, and maybe you're going to go 3-3 in that 6-game span, or 2-4 instead of 4-2. So I think some of those you're going to see a drop in the who had the easiest schedules last year, and you're going to see some increases on those that had the hardest schedules.
Yeah, I was looking at the win totals earlier, and this kind of plays into who they think is going to win the division. You have Atlanta 95.5. You have the Dodgers 96.5, and then Houston 95.5, and those are your top three. So it's kind of already telling you a story that they kind of predict these teams kind of being ideally where they're at last year, because all these teams were over 100 plus wins.
Right.
And then you have Atlanta adding Sean Murphy. They added some pitching depth, and they didn't really lose what they lost William Contreras, but they replaced him with Sean Murphy. I was like, so I don't think they've lost much on that end. They kept maintaining their pitching, just got to get them healthy and kind of maintain them during the season. I do like that Atlanta pick a lot. And of course the Padres, that's kind of like one of those ones that they had some great signings this year. They took Xander away from the Red Sox, which kind of hurt my feelings a little bit. And we kept Devers. We just gave more money to Devers. But it seems like that lineup is not from a pitching perspective. I mean, they still have a great ace in the hole there on the pitching end. But I mean, that lineup is just going to be absolutely electric with Manny Machado. You have Xander. I mean, oh my God. And then if you get immature ass back, and I can't think of his name now because I'm drawing a blank. But that offense is going to be that's trouble.
Tatis.
Yeah, Tatis. That's what. Tatis.
Yeah, so he'll be back in about 20 games, I think. He's got 20 or 22 still left that he's out for. And take into consideration they're playing the Dodgers less. They're playing the Giants less. Giants had a fantastic year last year, winning a lot more than anybody expected. So they're going from two of the top 10 teams and going to play 2-3 of the bottom 10 teams. So they should be picking up a few more wins. That the Dodgers, they're losing the Rockies, they're losing the Diamondbacks. So they're going to play tougher teams in the end. They lose the Padres, they lose the Giants too. But I think when you're 100 plus win team, you don't get to play yourself, win or lose. So the balance there is greater for the Padres than it is for the Dodgers on the new scheduling.
Yeah, and you make a great point there about looking at the schedule, who they have to play versus who they don't. From last year to this year. I mean, you see San Diego Padres won 89 games last year. The win total for them right now is 93.5. It's like what CT was saying is basically you're going to add wins here and there just based on the weaker of your schedule than it was last year.
Absolutely.
So that's the stuff that you have to take advantage of early before the line jumps up. And you also you made a couple picks on this one, which I like. I like make the playoffs yes or no. And you have a couple of them on here. You want to talk about these for a second? Your reason?
I do. I really love the Rangers. Now, some of that is DeGrom has to stay healthy.
Right.
But if he does, it's only going to help the Rangers. I like that they've got they had some good pickups in the offseason. They've got some younger talent. They've got I consider it a home field advantage for their roof. Actually a pretty good July and August over stadium. When you were asking about that earlier as well. Plus, they don't have to play Houston as much. They don't have to play Seattle as much. This is one of those where they get the advantage of losing some top teams and gaining a few lesser teams. Now, I really like the Mariners to make the playoffs as well, but I don't like playing, minus or juiced futures. I'd rather keep my money in my pocket and play it at the end of the year. Now, for a World Series future, maybe it's worth it, but at minus 150 to win, to be a yes for a playoff. I didn't think Mariners had a lot of value there. And then the Blue Jays, because I think the American League West could get 3 in. You probably get Cleveland or Minnesota in. White Sox is still at play there. I think Tampa Bay and the Yankees probably get in. I think the Yankees do get in. But again, there's no value at a minus 650, minus 1,000, depending where you're looking, for the Yankees to make the playoffs. So the value I found was at a plus 220 with the Blue Jays as a no. I think their pitching is, personally a little bit more inconsistent. And going back to the Yankees a little bit, I do like them for the World Series, but I would not buy them at plus 650 plus 700 right now. I'd wait a couple weeks. I think they're going to have some pitching inconsistencies for the next 2 weeks and still until everybody gets healthy. And then I think they're going to come back stronger. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them at a plus 12, plus 14, maybe even a little bit higher by middle of April. And then I'll probably get on them then.
Yeah, it's, Texas is kind of they made some unique moves that they normally don't. You always think of Texas, they're going to go get sluggers. They're going to go and spend the money and just go get hitters. This year they did a whole different approach. They went and got Jacob deGrom. They went and got Nathan Eovaldi, Andrew Heaney, Martin Perez, and Jake some of these pitchers. As a first 5 guy, I used to fade at least Haney and Orduzzi. Like, I can't even say his name now. Or the guy from Houston. He was like their worst pitcher, and I knew how to fade him. But he's so deep in the pitching rotation, it really isn't going to matter as long as you got weapons like deGrom and you got Eovaldi and whatever you got in that lineup. I think Texas did the right thing and just basically maintain what they have, and then just kind of. Let's build on some starting pitching and really make a move. I mean, this team had 68 wins last year, and their win total is 81.5. But what that correlates is what C2 was just saying. It's value on a team making the playoffs because ideally, I mean, you get high 80s. In a lot of these cases, you can be a playoff contender, especially with the expanded playoffs. So. Yeah, I like that. I like that Rangers pick a lot.
I do, and I think that they become a very dangerous team if they get into the playoffs with deGrom and Eovaldi, and likely if they are in the mix at the trade deadline, they will go out and find a stronger third pitcher. And even if you just have those 2, hopefully you get a third in. That makes 3 and 5 game series, even a 7-game series where deGrom is not afraid to pitch maybe 3 times, very, very dangerous.
Yeah, as long as he stays healthy too.
Yes,
all predicated on his health.
Yeah, and a half unit,
right. You're playing. What are they saying? What's the term they use? Pizza money. I hate that term. God, it's like really
beer money, pizza money.
Yeah, half a unit. How about say half a unit? Okay, like what's pizza money? It's like, is that a quarter unit? Is that a tenth of a unit? I don't know. Depends on you getting Domino's or you go into like the mom and pop shop that makes the best pizza in town. Whole different price. Let's go into win totals a little bit, and I know we got the futures on this one. So win totals is something that I can kind of understand. It's like basically, what did you do last year? What did you do in free agency? How did you improve? And basically, how does that correlate to the number that is sitting in front of me? That's kind of how I look at it.
Yep.
And also, like, what your schedule look like based on what you had to face last year, like C2 is always talking about. Let's talk about some of these total. What are like your top? Let's talk about your top 3. As Pun will pull up all your totals that you've already put in.
Sure.
Talk about your top 3 on this.
I think if top 3, maybe even top 4. Colorado under 66, Kansas City under 68, Pittsburgh under 67, Washington under 59. I just don't feel that any of those teams did anything to improve on last year. I think that they are uh, they have net harder schedules because of Colorado. Yeah, they lose a few games from the Dodgers and Padres, but they pick up the Yankees coming in. They pick up Tampa Bay. They pick up teams they weren't playing last year or the year before, and I don't have confidence that any of them have good pitching, or at least more than one good pitcher. And they don't have a whole lot. Washington just keeps selling their best players, and they don't reload. Now, another 2 years, I think they've got a good draft class. They'll come back. I just don't think this year is one of them.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on this one, especially like the Washington under 59.5. I was like, I don't know what they did except for they
Right.
sold their entire team last season and they just basically stayed dormant last year. And also that Texas over 81.5 is enticing. But I wanted to bring this up and we talked about it off air, but there was one that kind of stuck out in my mind when I was looking at these totals. So the White Sox, okay? White Sox to me looks like somebody that should drop off the face of this earth. Everybody, every pundit says like they lose Jose Abreu, they lose Cato, and they only gain Benintendi, who's kind of who knows what kind of production you're going to get out of him, and then all of a sudden Clevenger, and you don't know when he's going to suit up and actually play for the team because he's dealing with some off field issues. They were 81-81 this year. Their win total is 83.5, which is 2.5 above what they did last year. I was like, can you explain why they are not below the 81, but they're actually projected to improve this season?
The only thing that I can see is they play Minnesota and Cleveland less. And Minnesota and Cleveland, I think, are the two stronger in that division. So they have the advantage of playing, and I not exactly right, but Pittsburgh more. They play some of those lower national, the Colorados, the Pittsburghs, the Washingtons. They're going to play everybody, but they're losing teams that they lost to last year and gaining teams that they should be winning this year. I think that the White Sox do have some younger talent. I think there's some advantages there, but I don't have them in my in my wins total because they're and really I don't have anybody from that division except for Kansas City as an under because it could be a a boxing match between three prize fighters just to see who's left standing at the end of the year between Minnesota, Cleveland, and Chicago. But I'd give right now the advantage to Cleveland and Minnesota.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there. I just thought that was kind of an interesting one. Maybe take a flyer on that one. That was the only one that really stuck out to me. But you did make a good argument on Texas. I was kind of like, I usually don't like taking like, they got all these big free agents. Of course, their team total is going to go up. But when you actually look at the schedule, it does make a little bit of sense on that one.
Sure.
Let's go into actually some picks for opening day. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
It's gonna be a big day. Everything's gonna start early afternoon. You're gonna be at work. You're not gonna get anything done because you're gonna either be watching MLB TV on your computer or you're gonna be like refreshing the game track or whatever you guys do when you absorb baseball. But I do have 4 plays for the first inning that I've capped here. I want to start with C2, the totals guru. Let's start with your first 5 totals tomorrow because you
All right.
actually out.
Yep. So the three that I'm playing tomorrow, going to be Washington under 4, first 5 at a -115, Tampa Bay at under 3.5 at a -120, and Miami under 3 at -110. You've got uh, Washington National Stadium going to be pretty cold, 47 degrees.
I'm
Uh,
here. Yes, it is. It's
yeah,
cold.
yeah, and they even yesterday, I think it was 70. So
Yeah, it was
so
like it was high 60s. Yep.
yeah, they played the Yankees as their to close. Uh, Pretty low scoring affair as well. They're not going to be acclimated, and more than that, I love Freed. I think he's just amazing. He has a 0 ERA uh, in his 5 starts um, in spring training,
Mhm.
and a lot of people say, oh well, he's batting against minor league or he's pitching against minor leaguers. That's the best time. Spring training, I feel, is the best time. You either have an experienced pitcher that is just going to polish what they know as well, or they're going to go in and experiment. And having a zero ERA, he was polishing,
Yep.
and that's really impressive. So if I were to take a side, I'd take Atlanta -1.5, or at least -5, -0.5 on the first 5. Corbin, he his last spring training, gave up a couple extra runs. He was actually giving up 0 to 2 in his first few starts. So 5-point ERA in spring training. I think he settles down a little bit as well. Again, last year you had 7 games, you had 9 games. 2 of them didn't got postponed on opening day. 7 games went under first 5. 6 games went no run first inning and 1 went over, and you had 5 out of the 7 games go under full. I really think opening day is a lot of energy that you're just not able to harness it as much. It's the
Mhm.
nervous energy, it's the fans, it's also the weather, it's the temperature, it's the rules, it's am I doing everything right today, which makes it for more conservative play. Just in general, I'm going to like unders more, but when you've got Freed coming in, under 4, I think is a, a very nice number for first 5.
He also had a real. I was looking at my tracking sheets on that game. I didn't take it because it was just so heavily juiced. I didn't want to take it, but he had a great run in the first like 2 months where he was unstoppable
Mm-hmm.
in first 5. Just looking at that one, and then you got. I mean, that's you can tell how the national season is going to go when Corbin's your number 1 guy. I mean,
Yes.
he used to be a guy that I would love to fade on first 5s in any matchup. So when you got him sitting in the lineup as your 1, I can't imagine what you're going to bring next to me. I mean,
Right.
I mean, they're just going to be a really bad team. Anything for a full game that you're seeing on the totals?
I do. I've got one full game over, and that's going to be Minnesota at Kansas City. Normally, I'd kind of like Kansas City as an under, but Lopez isn't great, and Greinke has been horrible. He's a guy that does need to get back on track. I think he'll like being back in Kansas City, but he was an over pitcher last year. You've got 66 degrees, so it's a nice day in Kansas City. You've got a 15 mile per hour wind going out towards left, which is a nice nice area to be hitting in. So that one, I'm sorry, you have a 19.6 going out to left center. Um, the lines moved from 8.5 to 9. You can find 8.5 a little bit juicier at 120 now, and 9 you can find at even money. So if you're playing 9 at even money, I think that's fine too. But I do, and this is more Twins batting versus Greinke pitching that I see. Again, I could take the Twins both on a first five money or run line and the game.
What did you just look at my sheet, because that's one of my
Oh,
first
did you?
plays. Yeah. So let me talk about some of my first five plays to give you a little bit of a breather on this one. First five, I'm actually going to be taking Boston minus 130 first five on this one. Kyle Gibson is a guy that I love to fade when he used to play for Philly. He was 12-18 overall in first fives last season on the road. I'm sorry, all together, and then on the road he was 1-11. He gave up 3.62 runs per 5 innings on the road. Yeah, it doesn't matter who the pitcher is. I know Kluber is going to be the pitcher for Boston. He's kind of more of a coin flip as far as his production is concerned. But this is going to be his first start in Boston. I think he's going to be a little bit like motivated to go and put out a good outing, and he's capable of doing that. Whereas Gibson on the other side, I just don't see him doing it. I think he's just historically bad, especially on the road. He may do better in a different situation at home. But I like that. I like them on first five minus 130. I think it's a good price. Also, I'm going to be taking a dog on Milwaukee versus the Cubs. I'm going to take Cubs money line plus 115. Stroman's on the mound. He was 3-0 last season in first five versus Milwaukee, and most of those games were in early April and May. I think he had one late one in September too. So the colder weather kind of plays better for him against the Brewers. Whereas they played Burns. I know Burns is always considered like, oh, he's so good, you just got to take him. But he was 4-4 in first fives in April and May last season, 2-2 on the road. He was 0-2 versus the Cubs. So in that span, I got to be taking Stroman over Burns. Also, the Cubs were actually really good against Milwaukee last year, 10-6 straight up in first fives.
Yep.
And just looking at their win total projection, you see the Cubs kind of climbing up, and you see the Milwaukee kind of staying stagnant where they are last year. I don't think they made any moves to improve. So I'm going to be taking Cubs plus 115, take the value on that one.
Yep.
And then
if I can, Stroman and Burns both pitched 19 innings during spring training. Both of them are experienced pitchers. They should be working on, polishing. Stroman was a 1.89, gave up 4 runs. Burns was a 4.74, gave up 10 runs. I love that dog play tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, even you take I'm not a full game guy. I think the full game was like plus, I want to say 125. I'm guessing on that one, but I just thought there was good value there in the 5. Also, C2 mentioned this one. I'm going to be taking Minnesota. I got a kind of a juicy line on this one. It's a little bit high for me, but I'm still going to take it minus 150 at first 5 on that one. Minnesota money line. Pablo Lopez, you say that like he's a bad pitcher. I think he was bad late, and he was really good and solid early. He was 6-2 in his first 13 starts in F5. So it's like he won 6 out of 15, but he only lost 2, so he had a lot of pushes in there. Where Greinke on the other side, he started the year 0-5 in first fives, and he didn't get a win he didn't have a lead after 5 innings until June last year. So that is not a pitcher you want to back.
And Lopez isn't great, but Greinke's worse.
Yeah.
so fade the worst pitcher. Yeah.
Right. And that goes back to my Boston play too. I'm trying to fade the worst pitcher on this one.
Right.
Greinke's 1-4 in F5s versus Minnesota as well, averaging 3 runs per 5 innings against them. Where KC is 3-7 versus Minnesota in April and May F5s last season, 6-13 overall. So I'm playing a lot of these last season stats because that's all I got right now. So, but I think, kind of everything will fall into place as they were from last season. There's not that much of a gap, I think. And quite frankly, I just think Lopez is going to fit okay with Minnesota. I mean, he wasn't the best pitcher there, obviously. There was another ace there. Also, I like the under in the Toronto and St. Louis one. Under 3.5 is what I got it at, minus 105. Mikolas is going to be he's going to be the pitcher for St. Louis, and he was solid in April, May last season. He only gave up 1.07 runs in 5 innings at home. And you have Manoah on the mound for Toronto, and you know what he does. He's just been absolutely dominant. 1.11 runs per 5 innings in April, May last season. He was 1.25 runs per 5 innings on the road too.
Yeah.
So he's been very consistent on home versus away. But where Mikolas dropped off is exactly what you mentioned. When they changed the balls, he was giving up he was giving up only like 1 to 2 runs per inning. I think he had 5 shutouts, but when it turned to mid-May, he gave up back-to-back 4-run outings.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of interesting to see.
If I had a fifth play, that would be a first 5 under for me as well.
Yeah.
Mikolas, 12 innings in spring training. Again, he was a 0 ERA, and Manoah, 3.10. That especially for spring training, pretty reasonable. So,
Right.
yeah, I'm with you. I may even add that one. I'll tell you.
That's I mean that was like I kind of like don't want to touch totals early because I like to see how these pitchers do. I like to have like 4 or 5 samples before I start rocking totals. But when those two guys meet up and what their production is, home versus away, I just think that hitters will be rusty, and you're playing the 2 best pitchers, arguably, not only in their team but like top 5 in their league. I mean, and they don't give up a lot of runs in their first 5 innings, and I think it's a perfect storm there. And I saw the line was the total was like 7.5. I was like, this should be 6.5. Like the Scherzer game was like 6.5. I didn't touch. I was like, Scherzer can give up 4 runs or he can give up none. I don't know where he's going.
Yeah.
So like,
it opened at 8, and I should have grabbed that then.
Yeah.
But no, and then one other one that I would lean towards the Diamondbacks Dodgers. Gallen just horrible in spring training. Urias actually not great during spring training. Both of them are much better, full season pitchers. So at an over 7, I think there's some value, but I stayed off it, because I think that Gallen was experimenting a little bit more in spring training than he normally would, and he would just kind of go back to 1 and 2 pitches for first few. The other thing that I consider, especially about the first 2 to 3 starts, is pitch counts. If you're going to take an under, go early, because they may be out after 4.5, 5 innings. And who knows what's going to happen after that.
Right. Yeah. Once you get, that's the thing. It's like, that's why I stay with 5 is like, I don't have, like, more often than not, I don't have to worry about who's like trying to figure out the mystery of who's coming out of that bullpen. Is it going to be like some hack job meatball that's a middle reliever, or is it going to be like their best setup guy that's going to kind of get them to the 8th inning and get them to the 9th? Who knows what their strategy is as a manager. So I hate betting in that type of mechanism. That's why I started the first 5 system.
Yeah.
But C2, he does the team totals. Tell everybody about your package and what they can expect to see from you on not only on a daily basis but all the way through the season.
Absolutely. No, you'll see posting. Again, the package is and anybody new, 600 yen, $500 or 5 unit guarantee. I recommend $100 per play. That's what I do on mine, and that's what I track. So at the end of the year, if I'm not up more than 5 units, you get 500 back. If I'm up 4.5, you get 500 back. There's a lot of time that I put in, so there is a small stipend that I get. But other than that, I'm open. You're going to be asking me questions. I'm going to be answering. I'm going to be giving you lines that are available. If a line that I post leaves in the next 15 minutes, I'm probably going to take it off the card. I might be playing it anyway, but I'm not going to be tracking it if it's not available to everybody that gets in. Overs, what I'll be doing is I'll be putting those out the night before in general. I'll be telling you which games I'll be playing first 5 unders, but traditionally first 5 under lines don't come out until either later in the evening or even morning of those games. So those are a little bit more touchy on when you can get in on them. But again, I want to be as consistent and open to any of the clients and followers I have.
I mean, you can see his record. You just go to his, you go to at 40-year-old vision, felt right there below me. He put his entire record of every single year that has been tracked, and you can actually see his production on that one. He's as transparent as it comes, and he backs it up, and he's not like every other cat on the planet. He doesn't rip you off. I do have the Slack channel. All you have to do is click the link in the bio. You can join there. I do first 5. I know Oddfellow does some baseball, and I know producer Pun does the chase. So we're going to be all revved up for baseball. You want to know my record last year? This was the test run of the first 5s. It started rocky, but we finished strong. 1,171, 1,049, and 196 plus 13 units. But when I got into the summer, when I had the data, my 2-unit plays started to pick up. My 2-unit plays with 124, 78, and 16 plus 64.41 units.
Awesome.
So that is what kept me above water, folks.
Yeah.
And now that I have data on this, it's going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. If you want to join, all you have to do is click the link in the bio and tip us at the end of the month, whatever denomination you feel deemed worthy of our performance. But that's going to do it for DadBodds 116 here. C2, thank you, sir. Always a pleasure having you on. And my God, we got to have you back sometime during this whole melee of baseball season when there's not anything else going on besides the ball and the bat and the glove. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I will look forward to it. Appreciate it, Guns.
Yep.
Thank you, Producer Pun. And
yeah,
Odds will be back next time.
Yeah. And Odds is in jolly old London, or he's in England somewhere, having a pint of Guinness somewhere. But let's wrap this up. We're gonna say good luck. Let's cash some tickets. You got the first 5 picks, and I'm gonna probably add 1 or 2 more. I'm checking some lines right now as we speak, so go check out the Slack channel for that, and also go check out C2's package for his totals. Absolutely, a bunch of cash can be made as we fire shots and we say bang, bang, bang. See you later. Let's cash some tickets. And as always, let's keep dancing. Pun, close them out.